Hello everyone, in today's hobby video I'm going to show you how to paint Astra Militarum tiny little eyes. Now definitely it's very challenging, let's be very clear. You can see this chap here, Acadian Plasma Gunner. It's far from perfect, but I definitely believe that practicing painting eyes makes you a better painter, and also your miniatures do look way better with their eyeballs all painted with the white and their eyeballs as well. So why is it so hard to paint Astra Militarum miniatures? Well, clearly because they're tiny. So here's a Custodes hero, Trajan Valoris. You can see he's a monster of a man, and you can see how physically big his head is as well. So even with Trajan, I've managed to make him a bit of a fish with his eyes looking the wrong way, but he is a big miniature. Now, the hardest thing about painting Astra Militarum at this point is obviously anybody wearing a helmet. So as we compare to a Catagen Jungle Fighter, it's much easier to access the eyes, given there's no helmet on the left and right, and top and bottom getting in the way. But definitely as I show the rest of the chaps I'm just displaying here, it definitely makes them pop. I hope you agree, painting eyes. So I'm going to go for this video and show you basically how I approach it. It's far from perfect, but it's more about encouraging you and showing you some tips and to make it a bit easier as you try and paint some tiny eyeballs. Right, so for the demonstration I've got 3 Kazkin or Kazrakin, mispronounced, heads. Now, the key thing is I component paint them. So you can see they're still on the sprues with some alligator crypts to hold them. Now, you can't always do this, and where you can't, you might have to drill with a hand drill a little hole inside the neck of the miniature and use some wire to basically hold them in place. Now, I really recommend component painting the heads because it allows you to easy access the eyes, which are very hard to get to. And you can see the miniatures' heads have been fully painted on the outside with all the edge highlighting done. So all that's going to be left is actually painting the faces. So you can see I've painted them Bugmans Glow with an undercoat first on the skin of a flat black. Now we'll basically apply some Reikland Fleshshade. Now, the key point on brushes, I opt for using high quality brushes as opposed to loads of poor quality brushes. So here you can see I'm very carefully applying the Reikland Fleshshade from Citadel onto the miniature's face. Now this is not an aggressive task, you want to be quite careful, slowly sort of getting into all the nooks and crannies. And what this basically achieves is giving that sort of a depth and shadow effect in his, between his lips, up his nostrils, cheekbones, and obviously the eye sockets as well. So once you've done this, you could actually say job done if you do want to sort of bosh it out. But of course you want to take it a big step further. So now on to the business end. Now, we're going to paint firstly the white of the eyes. Now you can see here I'm using a very cheap wet palette I've developed myself with some kitchen sponge, some baking powder, kept in a little Tupperware sandwich container. Now you can buy your own pre-made ones, but this has served me very well for the last 3 or 4 years and cost me next to nothing. The importance of a wet palette is it keeps the paint nice and moist and wetter than longer being left out in the air. And here I'm using a highly precise 0 brush. Now I would recommend, if you're going to start painting eyes, invest the money on a high precision brush. Actually, Citadel don't have a brush which is sort of detailed enough so actually to go externally over the Games Workshop and find a very high precision brush. Now, actually painting the eyes themselves, here you've got to be quite brave, and it's a massive, for me personally, process of trial and error. So, as you can see, I'm holding the miniature's head very carefully in my hand with my left pointy finger stabilizing the miniature. I'm now going to approach painting his right eye, moving the brush from the inside of his face to the outside, and it's simply done with one straight line. So can I get it the first time? Let's find out. So you can see I potentially painted a bit too much in his right eye, but that's okay because we're going to come back and clean this up later. So now on to his left eye, I think it was. You can see I've changed the position of my hand. The camera focus isn't helping here, but it's all about obviously making it easy as possible for you as you do this. So how am I going to go with this one? Let's find out. Looks like I probably got a bit too much as always, but how are they looking? So again, the focus isn't helping, but you can definitely see there is too much paint there, but that's okay because we're going to clean it up later, as I said. Alright, so here are the 3 I've painted, and you can see relatively a poor degree of execution, we could call it. You can see the medic man with the red thing on the head, on the top of the helmet, is looking absolutely terrible, and the other ones on the left isn't too bad, on the right is okay. So now we need to basically clean these all up and basically clean up the imperfections and actually make the eyes look a bit more realistic. So here I'm actually using a number 4 brush. It's a much more precise brush. Basically take your Bugmans Glow, which was the undercoat we've used. Make sure you've got enough on the brush, and a good tip is always to test it on your fingernail to make sure that you've got the right amount of flow. And here, again, being as precise as possible, you're basically making the whites of the eye as consistent as you can. So here, looks like bottom left and top right, if that makes sense, aren't sort of fitting the shape of the eye that well. So I do my very best to clean them up here and basically try and make the eye look a bit more symmetrical both across left and right. Right, so there's the three heads here, and you can see they're relatively okay. The medic man on the right is still looking absolutely atrocious, and I'm pretty confident to go over him like 3 times to get it right. So that's a thing, if you totally bin one and just can't make it work, repaint the eye sockets with Bugmans Glow, apply some more shade wash, and then start all over again. Now, you probably can do it a couple of times before it gets too thick, but now we're going to move on to actually painting the eyeballs themselves. So here we're using a matte black, and again using your most precise brush. Again, you want to basically make sure that the paint itself flows quite nicely. So add a bit of water to the black paint to make sure it flows correctly. And then you want to be as precise as possible as we go to apply it to the actual eyes. So again, I'm lining up the miniature to make it as easy as possible, yeah? So given I'm painting in a downwards motion, I've got the miniature all lined up, so it's easy to execute in inverted commas. So how do I go with this chap here? Do I get it right the first time? And I know the focus of this camera is not helping this tutorial, but please stick with it. So can I get it? Let's see. Okay, so that's not too bad. Now, one thing to remember, it's okay if you make a snake eyes, in the sense that, you know, an actual eyeball is a ball, but snakes obviously have like, you know, their eyeball essentially is up and down, and this guy's going to look like a bit of a snake. But again, remember, this is not perfect, and if you think about like the elements of tabletop quality, if that makes sense, it's okay if these aren't perfect, because as you'll see once they're modeled on the miniature, you actually can't see these imperfections, they get hidden. So how about this chap here? Do we nail it? Do we nail it? Okay, not bad. At least it's central. And a key thing to remember is, depending on which eye you paint first, that sets the direction of which way it's looking. So this guy's looking slightly to his right, and I've managed to get that pretty much spot on. So go Jeff at this point. And then we got the unfortunate medic alien burns victim, looking pretty weird. And again, the zoom isn't helping, but you know, in this case, you just got to go with what you got. And I do my best here to basically make it quite precise. But I think actually after this, I actually clean up his right eye on the left of the screen, because even that's looking absolutely huge. But the key thing is here, it should just be one dot. Use the most detailed brush you've got, ideally like a size 0, to basically get it done. So here they are. You can see the 3 chaps, their heads looking relatively good at this point. Obviously the medic man on the right is looking a bit mongoloid, but his 2 colleagues in the center and left aren't too bad. So here they are assembled, fully painted and ready to be varnished. So I show this completed because you can see the way I've posed this chap, for example, looking down, does actually mean you're not going to see the imperfections as much as you would if he's facing straight on. That's the point about this, is that it's not going to be perfect. If you're as good as I am, which is decent but not amazing, you're not going to get your eyeballs perfect, yeah. But just the fact that his eyes are painted white, that chap is going to look a bit better. So this bloke, to be fair, his eyes weren't too bad. And again, given he's all painted up and you've got the rest of the miniature all completed, it sort of hides the imperfection because your eyes are drawn all over the place, aren't they? It's almost like, you know, you've got too much to look at, so you're not going to notice that his eyes aren't perfect. Now, the ultimate test is going to be then the medic man with the unfortunately bad eyes. So you can see, obviously, as I said, I repainted him 3 times to get this right. And you can see once he's fully assembled, hopefully you agree, the fact the whites of the eyes are there and the black eyeballs are also there, it does make it actually a worthwhile effort, yeah. Even on the sides, you can see the whites of the eyes, and that's the point. It's you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. But you can't have it obviously being like a massive fish face, some sort of like alien monster with the eyeballs all over the place. So it definitely think is worth it. I think the summary of this is don't be afraid to try, but make sure you've got the right tools and the right technique. Get a fine paintbrush, like a zero paintbrush. Get a wet palette. Make sure your paint can flow easily and stays moist for as long as possible. And then obviously, as I said, component paint heads if you want to do it properly. Make your life easy. Make sure you can actually access the miniature easily, and do simple stuff like when you hold the head, you're stabilizing with the back of your supporting hand to make sure it doesn't move about. And as you apply the brush strokes, do in a direction that makes sense, of course. Just make life easier. So do try. Astra Militarum eyes are worth it. It's really hard work. This has taken me years of practice, but I think it's definitely makes them look very, very sharp on the tabletop. So hopefully it was helpful. I'll put in the description below like the paints I use, which is pretty straightforward for this process. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So if you enjoyed the video and want to support my channel, you can do so via a like, comment, or by subscribing. Feeling super generous, you can join my Patreon Platoon. However, simply watching any of my other YouTube videos really helps me as it boosts the YouTube algorithm. On the True Astra Militarum variety channel, covering everything from the hobby aspect, including assembling, kit bashing, and painting, like this video here. The tactical element of 10th edition of 40k, and also the lore, my recent spate of lore videos being how realistic is certain parts of the Astra Militarum story, like the Chimera armored personnel carrier, the Cadian war gear, and also the Catagen jungle fighters. And huge thanks to my current supporters. Let's get your bayonet sharp, let's go unoiled. Faith in the Emperor strong. Patreon Platoon, sound off. Tank Commander Glenn. Tank Commander Watchdog Van Etten. Tank Commander Mitchell. Lieutenant Burke Nielsen. Lieutenant Smith. Colour Sergeant DuPont. Sergeant Adal. Scott. The Colonel Merrill. Veteran Gibson. Hall. Lundeen. Guardsman Beard. Coquelin. Flint. Hills. Malik, Nitin, Nguyen, Tom, Tompkin, Conscript de Paz, England, Evan Gunn, Gillian, Goodwin, King.